अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। If you don't mind, can you close the laundry door? We were on verse number 72, not verse, prose number 72, and the disciple had made a comment in the discussion when the teacher says that everything is, the cause is ignorance. In that respect, now the dialogue is coming through. And the disciple says, Nanu chitimatve samepi Bhrutte Swaminoho Anyonyarthatvam Drushtam. But it may be said that the servant and the master are seen to serve each other's purpose, though they are equally possessed of consciousness. The idea that was taken was that just like sun is expressing as heat and light, but it doesn't know heat and light, because heat and light is its nature. It cannot have an experience of heat and light as other than itself. It is not an objective experience for the sun to see the heat and light as separate to itself, because that is its nature. So the teacher told the student, the consciousness is like that. It is like the consciousness expresses like that, and everything else is nothing but the consciousness. So with respect to that, the student gave the example of servant and the master, and he says, but servant is conscious and the master is also conscious. That is our experience. Two different people, two different consciousnesses expressing themselves through two different bodies. So, are there two consciousnesses? How can you say that consciousness is one? Because my experience is so many different consciousnesses. So the teacher says, Naivam, it is not so like this. Then what is it? Agne rushna prakashavat tavat chiti matvasya vivikshittatvat pradarshitashcha drishtantah pradipa prakasha yoriti tatraivam sati स्वबुद्ध्यारूढ़मेव सर्वमुपलभसे अग्निउष्ण प्रकाशतुल्येन कूटस्थ नित्य चैतन्य स्वरूपेण. For I speak of consciousness belonging to you like heat and light to fire. This is what we did till here last time. It is for this reason that I cited the lamp of the lights of two lamps. Therefore, as changeless and eternal consciousness, like the heat and light of fire, you know everything presented to your intellect. Thus, when you always know the self to be without any attribute, Why did you say I experience pain and pleasure again and again during the states of waking and dream after intervals of rest in deep sleep? And why did you say it is my own nature or causal? Has this delusion vanished or not from you? The student is obsessed with objectifying the truth, the consciousness, and the teacher is again and again trying to bring his attention that the only thing that there is in this the only thing that there is, I shouldn't even use the word in this creation, I can't. The only thing that there is a reality or pure consciousness or consciousness, whatever you may call it. But, and that I am, that is what that I am as body, mind, intellect also. There is nothing in this creation which is not permeated by this reality. But the student is not able to understand that. When the teacher said that every thought that is presented in your intellect is permeated by the consciousness. Who is the consciousness there? The witness. Without the witness, without the subject, the object cannot be you cannot be aware of it. Subject has to be there. But the teacher has gone one step further, that the object itself is nothing but the subject in its expansion. Just like wave is nothing but water itself. Just like ornament is nothing but gold itself. Similarly, body, breath, mind, intellect, space, air, fire, water, earth, galaxies, universe, creation, ignorance, whatever you may, all these are what for you? They are words in your intellect, isn't it? These these ideas, concepts in your intellect are nothing but consciousness expressing itself. We use the word heat and light, but from the absolute point of the sun or fire, there is nothing called heat and light. We use the word thoughts, concept, ideas, emotions, objects, emotions, thoughts, etc., etc. But from the self point of view, from consciousness point of view, there is no distinction, no differences like these. It just is. Last week I gave the example also, the cloth, the crease. Right now there is no crease on the cloth. Now there is crease on the cloth. From the cloth's point of view, it is complete. Whether the crease is there or not there, cloth is, or from that cloth standpoint, it is always complete. It does not know what a crease means. So from relative standpoint, we are using the words, thoughts, ideas, concepts, emotions, objects, persons. We are using analogies so that our mind can gel the whole idea together. Well, those analogies are given so that we stop thinking, not we continue thinking. इत्युक्त शिष्याः भगवन् अपगतः त्वत्प्रसादात् व्यामोहः किं तु मम कूटस्थतायां संशयः. To this the disciple replied, the delusion, sir, is gone by your grace. So this student is not off the street who has just heard some nice word somewhere along the road and chalo, let's go and sit and listen what the teacher is saying. No, he has prepared, and we have gone through that, how he has prepared himself. So he says, the delusion, sir, is gone by your grace, but I have doubts about the changeless nature which you say pertains to me. So the teacher is again and again pointing to the changeless self, the substratum, the reality within him, which we are giving a name called as self. He is having doubt about that. So the teacher says, what doubt? Katham Shabdadinam swatah siddhir nasti achetanatvat. Disciple says, sound, etc., do not exist independently as they are non-conscious. Sound itself is non-conscious, but there is called sound consciousness, meaning you are conscious of the sound. There is light consciousness, you are conscious of the light. There is touch consciousness, you are conscious of the touch. So with different experiences, different seeing, touching, feeling, tasting, ideating, conceptualizing, etc., 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 with everything is possible only because there is consciousness attached to it. But they come into existence when they arise in the mind, when there arises in the mind modifications resembling sound and so on. It is impossible that these modifications should have an independent existence, as they are exclusive of one another as regards their special characteristics, sound, touch, etc., and appear to be blue, yellow, different names and forms, or the sounds, etc. So sounds, etc., are not the same as mental modifications. It is therefore inferred that these modifications are caused by external objects. So it is proved that modifications resemble sound consciousness, touch consciousness, etc., objects existing externally. Similarly, these different modifications of the mind are also are combinations and therefore non-conscious. So not existing for their own sake, they, like sound, taste, etc., exist only when known by one different from them. Though the self is not a combination, it consists of consciousness and exists for its own sake. It is the knower of the mental modifications appearing to be blue, yellow, and so on. It must therefore be of a changeful nature. Hence is the doubt about the changeless nature of the self. What did we understand from this big one thing only? Don't worry about going into. Towards the end, the problem of the student comes. He says, to experience the one who experienced the sound, the consciousness has to be available. Then when I experience form, the consciousness has to be available. The interaction has to take place, isn't it? Then I see, then I touch, then again consciousness has to be available for that particular experience. So the student has come to a conclusion that with every stimuli, a consciousness has to come about, and that consciousness, the sound consciousness, is different to touch consciousness, is different to seeing consciousness, is different to smelling consciousness. So he says, with every stimuli, a consciousness is, I become aware. So this awareness is many types. That's why I use that I am aware of you. When I say I am aware of you, I am not aware of anyone else. Then when I am aware of her, then I am not aware of you. So the consciousness which was aware of you is different to consciousness which is aware of her. He says with every stimuli the consciousness is also changing, because sound, when I become aware of the sound, so he is using the word sound conscious. How can a sound conscious be equal to taste conscious consciousness? And this problem comes to us on the seat of meditation as long as we are objectifying. And the teacher's job is again and again to reiterate the consciousness is one without a second. But it's a valid, for the student it is a valid doubt. But what does the teacher say? So the student's doubt was, I have doubt about the changeless nature which you say pertains to me. You say that I am the changeless principle, but I can't digest that, because in my experience as we are going through the contemplation, with every stimuli the consciousness is changing. With childhood I was conscious, child was conscious at a, is different to you, teenage conscious is different to youth or old age. We have studied enough, so we take the other side. But the student, this particular disciple, is looking at the object and then defining the consciousness. What do? We look at the consciousness and then see the relationship of it with the various objects or various stimuli. Tam Gururu Vacha, then the teacher said to him, Na yuktastava sanshayah. Your doubt is not justifiable. Why it is not justifiable? We know that there is only one consciousness. But now how the teacher explains. Yatastesham pratyayanam niyamena asheshatah upalabdhaireva aparinamitvat kutasthava siddhau निश्चय हेतुमेव अशेष चित्त प्रचारोपलब्धिम संचय हेतुमात्थ यदि ही तव परिणामित्वं स्यात् अशेषस्व विषय चित्त प्रचारोपलब्धिर्न स्यात् चित्तस्येव स्वविषये यथा चेन्द्रियाणां स्वविषयेषु न च तथात्मनस्तव स्वविषयैकदेशोपलब्धिः अथ कूटस्थतैव तवेति. Why your doubt is not justifiable? For you the self are proved to be free from change and therefore perpetually the same, on the ground that all the modifications of the mind without a single exception are simultaneously known to you, known by you. You regard this knowledge of all the modifications, which is the reason for the above inference, as that for your doubt. The student says, the disciple is saying that every time I interact with something, then a new knower is being born. The knower who knows Stanton, the knower who knows the camera, the knower who knows the carpet, the knower who sees the fan revolving. He says for every experience, one new experiencer is being born. But the teacher is saying no, the experiencer is only one. He is not many. Objects are many, but the experiencer or the knower is one. And all the data that is coming into your mind can be known by you simultaneously. But that is not our experience right now. But if he will give some example, that is also your experience, but you don't want to accept it. The disciple doesn't want to accept it right now. You will see. You regard this knowledge of all the modifications, which is the reason for the above inference, as that for your doubt. If you were changeful like the mind or the senses, which pervade their objects one after another, you would not simultaneously know all the mental modifications, the objects of your knowledge. Just like the objects keep changing, and the object does not have the knowledge of another object. He says, if you were like that object, continuously changing, you would not have known your past. You would not have known what you did 10 minutes ago or 5 minutes ago. Because you are the unchanging principle, therefore you are able to see the changing objects or the changing experiences. Nor are you aware of a portion only of the objects of your knowledge at a time. You are therefore absolutely changeless. See, in Sanskrit, the word is Gyan and Vigyan. Gyan is relative knowledge, and Vigyan is absolute knowledge. Absolute knowledge is equal to wisdom. In wisdom, no thought is required for wisdom to take place. Oh, then what do you talk about? You are that, I am that, consciousness is the reality, and I am that consciousness. As long as those thoughts are going in your mind, you have not attained wisdom. When that stops, then wisdom dawns. But as long as there is a thought, there is an idea present in the mind, we are still one step away from ourselves. So here the teacher is telling the student that you are the changeless principle, and you are the one in which the knowledge about all the objects is taking place. And because you are the one in whom the knowledge about all the objects is taking place, therefore you can remember them. Is he saying true? I am asking. If this is the teacher's statement that in the self all the knowledge is taking place, is it true? Yes, because self is all knowing. Nothing is hidden from it. It knows the micro as well as the macro. And now he will come to show us how self knows, how the knowledge takes place in the self. Relatively speaking, we may say that when I say, I know Radha, these are just words with empty meaning. But what this sentence, the knowledge that is taking place as a result of I know Radha, the knowledge that has come about, where is it? Is it in Radha? No. Is it in the knowing? No, because the instrument is inert. Then where is it? It is in the... Is it in the I? You find out. तत्राह उपलब्धिर्नाम धात्वर्थो विक्रियैव उपलब्धुः कूटस्थात्मता चेति विरुद्धम. The disciple said, knowledge is the meaning of a root and therefore surely consists of a change, and the knower, as you say, is of a changeless nature. This is a contradiction. That the knowledge is changing and the knower is unchanging. How can there be an interaction between the two? Very difficult. I can't understand this. No. The teacher says no, it is not so. Dhatvartha vikriyayam upalabdhyupacharat yo hi bodhah pratyah sa dhatvarto vikriyatmakah atmanah upalabdhyabhasa फलावसान इति उपलब्धि शब्देन उपचर्यते. यथा छिदी क्रिया द्वैधी भाव फलावसानेति धावर्थत्वेन उपचर्यते तद्वत्. It is not so. For the word knowledge is used only in a secondary sense to mean a change called an action. Action brings about change. What is the action when I say I know Radha? What is the action here?
Speaking.
Yes, speaking is an action. At a more subtler level, I went away from myself. So the thoughts came. The movement of thoughts is action, isn't it? I is one thought, no is one thought, Radha is one thought. So here the disciple is saying knowledge is the meaning of the root, and therefore here the root, meaning knowledge is the meaning of an action. Every action must leave some knowledge behind. So don't get lost in the word root. And therefore surely consists of a change, and action continuously changes. So knowledge is continuously changing. How can you say that the knower has all the knowledge if knowledge is changing with every action? The teacher says no. The word knowledge is only used only in a secondary sense to mean change called an action, the meaning of a root. a modification of the intellect called an action ends in a result in itself, which is the reflection of knowledge, the self. This is very important. The statement is a modification of the intellect. What is the modification of an intellect? A thought, correct? A thought. A modification of the intellect called an action. So when you say the action in the intellect is, that is thought. Ends in a result in itself. So the action took place in my mind, in my intellect, I know Radha. It results in itself. What is the result? It results in itself, which is the reflection of knowledge, the self. Now, this is, if you can catch it, fantastic. Otherwise, sit with yourself, contemplate more and more. What does that mean? That the result of an action or a result of a thought is the reflection of knowledge, the self. Think what it means. The result of an action, the result of thinking, is the reflection of the knowledge of the self. Reflection of knowledge, the self. Not of the self, reflection of knowledge, the self. Self is all knowing. Anything that you know in this, anything that you know through action, let that be physical action, let that be emotional or intellectual, where does the knowledge take place?
The mind, the self.
The knowledge takes place in the self. It cannot take place in an inert object. It has to necessarily take place in the self. And where is it taking? When he uses the word that results in itself, which is the reflection of knowledge, the self. That knowledge, I know Radha, that subject, object and the instrument of knowing has brought about a result. Where is that result taking place? It's not in the mind. It's in the self. It is for this reason that this modification is called knowledge in a secondary sense, just as the action of cutting a thing in two is secondarily called its separation in two, which is the ultimate result of the action of cutting the thing. It's just that when I take, today I wanted to cut the cucumber. So I am cutting it's one cucumber. I am cutting it and making it into two. But cucumber is one. Now I made it into two. Similarly, I am one. But when I think a thought, I have become two. And after having becoming two, then I say, I know the other. So this self has become all the things that all the names and forms, and then I interact with it and I say, I know Stanton, I know camera, I know carpet, I know Lalita, I know Radha, I know uncle, and I create an action. But essentially, I only have become. The water itself has become many waves, and then it says, I know, I have so many waves. But the knowledge that of the wave in the ocean will be as I. It will not it cannot, you use the word arm, but you have no experience of the knowledge of this arm is as I. It is not other than you. Isn't it? Now, if this example is, if you can feel that example, that the nails, eyes, where is don't use the word my here, but just the arm. Immediately, the knowledge of arm, and so is true about everything in this creation. So now the teacher, being thus told, the disciple said, "Sir, the example cited you cannot prove that I am changeless." The student is still holding on to that. He is not able to come to himself. He cannot see that how one has become many, and when the one knows the many, the knowledge takes place in the, that knowledge is already there in the one. It is not a new knowledge that is created. Very important point. That the knowledge is not new. So he says, I cannot, sir, the example cited by you cannot prove that I am changeless. The teacher says, how? The disciple says, for just as the ultimate separation into two is used secondarily for the action of cutting, which is the meaning of the action, so the word knowledge is used secondarily for the mental modifications, which is the meaning of root or action, and which ends in the result that is a change in knowledge. The example cited by you therefore cannot establish the changeless nature of the self. Again he has come back to the same point, that the knowledge is already there, but then action has taken place, and then a knower was there to know something, and that action that took place at the level of thought, then the knowledge was created, and that was one type of knowledge, then another type of knowledge, then third type of knowledge, then fourth type of knowledge. He says with every knowledge again the knower is being born. How can it be a changeless knower? He cannot understand that knower is only one. It is not many. This problem will come on the seat of meditation, not here. Here is contemplation. If you are going with the thought as the text is going, it will, if you are following it, if you are very clear as to what the discussion is going on, fantastic. The dilemma of the student is that the knowers are many with many knowledges. And the teacher is saying, no, there is only one changeless knower, knowledge or knower. He is borrowing himself to every object. The teacher said, what you say would be true if there were a distinction between the knower and knowledge. For the knower is external knowledge, for the knower is external knowledge only. The knower and knowledge are not different as they are in the argumentative philosophy. So we have a philosophy called Nyayikas. In that everything, they split every word, argue with every hair, hair splitting argument like that. But we are not here to argue. In argument, no conclusion is reached. You can hold one word and start an argument all over again, and they go into very deep thoughts. But are we coming to the conclusion that the truth is? So the teacher is suddenly cutting him out. He says, I am not here into arguments. That the reason that you are feeling this way is because you are feeling that the knower and the knowledge are two separate, but they are one and the same. They are not different. Nanu upalabdhi phalavasano dhatvartha kathamiti. The disciple says, how is it then that an action ends in a result which is knowledge? If both are same, if the knower, the conscious principle, is knowledge itself, then how come an action leaves a knowledge? See, we don't think in that depth. We're just living by default. So he says, how is it then that an action, that is a thought, ends in a result which is knowledge? Uchyate. The teacher said, listen, shrunu. Upalabdhya bhasa phalavasana ityuktam. Kim na shrutam tattvaya. Natu atma vikriyotpadana vasan iti mayoktam. He said, listen, it was said that the mental modifications called an action ended in a result which was the reflection of knowledge. Did you not hear it? I did not say that a change was produced in the self as a result of the modification of the mind. Very simply put, he did not say that there was a modification in the self. There can be no modification in the self. We may see modification on the water called waves. We may see modification on the gold called ornaments. But from our gold point of view or water point of view, there is no modification. Isn't it? From the cloth point of view, there is no modification called a crease. We who are outside, we are saying that there is a modification. But from its own. So if self alone self is the principle which is knowing everything, there can be no modification. So what is the conclusion? If there was a modification in the self, then it is possible that there are many knowers. But because there is no modification possible, the knower is one, and that is the self. You also say, I know Stanton, I know Surendran, I know uncle. The objects are changing, but the I is remaining the same. How can you say that I is changing? Because I is the definition of I is the same. The problem, the disciple is struggling with understanding this. Shishya vacha katham tarhi kutasthe mai asheshasva vishaya chitta pracharopalabdha dhrutva mityatha. How then am I, who am changeless, the knower, as you say, of all the mental modifications, the object of my knowledge? You got what he says? He says, how then am I, who am changeless? I am the changeless principle. The knower, the changeless knower. He is not multiplying into becoming many knowers. As you say, of all mental modifications, the object of my knowledge, how can I come to know myself then? And through every thought, how am I coming to know myself? Because every thought must leave a knowledge. And that knowledge I already am. And it's taking place in the self only. This question a wave is asking to a teacher, that how the water is becoming many waves, and then thinking of those waves and the knowledge that is taking place as a result of that thinking is leaving a knowledge which is nothing but water, which was already present in the water about any other wave. How is this possible? Why is the thought coming in the first place? Why is the self, why is the water expressing as the wave or the ocean, and then having knowledge that this is an ocean and this is a wave, and that knowledge is taking place where? In the water. So what was the point of expressing like this and coming to know which it already knew? Getting the point where this is not given there, but I am putting that example. So the self has expanded into the mind, or as the mind, as if it cannot, but as if it seems to be. And then through the mind it is knowing the various aspects and phenomena of the creation. But the knowledge that takes place with that thinking is taking place in the self, but that self is already all knowing. So how, why, how this is going on? So we are clear till here? Clear, uncle?
Little bit.
What is not clear? Tell me. So, because no point going ahead. What is not clear? Tell me. Don't read there. You listen, because by reading you will not understand, because the language is very funny there. I am making it simpler. In that example of water, wave, ocean, what did you not understand?
Water is what? Always water.
Water is always water, but water is all knowing.
Huh?
Water is all knowing. Why did the water become the ocean or the wave, then had a thought of the ocean and the wave, and that thought will leave a knowledge, isn't it? Every thought must leave a knowledge. That wave is a wave or ocean is an ocean. So that knowledge which took place, where will it take place? In the water. But water already knows everything. So the student's question is, why is this happening? Meaning,
already knows, and
why, if it already knows, then why it is
happening?
why is there action taking place and knowledge taking place as a result of action? And that knowledge, we think that knowledge is taking place and we speak in that language also, but the self already knows. See? Everything, the whole deck of cards will fall. Tam gururuvacha satyam avocham tenaiva kutastha mabruvam tava. I told you the right thing. The very fact that you know simultaneously all the mental modifications was adduced by me as the reason why you are eternally immutable. So where is the teacher's attention? And what is the intention of the teacher when he is talking to the student? Not to prove duality. Teacher's intention is that there is only one without a second, and that you are. That's all the teacher can do. The student has to realize that in his own contemplation. That final click, the words may be teachers, but the click will happen in him. That the teacher cannot bring about. So the teacher, I told you the right thing. The very fact that you know simultaneously all the mental modifications. What are all the mental modifications? All the thoughts. Where do you get all the thoughts? In the waking and dream. You are the knower of all the thoughts. Simultaneously you can know. Was adduced by me as the reason why you are eternally mutable. We may have we have the memories of the past, we have the memories of childhood, youth, grown up, till today. We can access them, you know. If you put enough concentration, you can access anything. But you have a feeling that you are changing. But if you are changing, then the past knowledge should not be there. You are changing. So then there is one principle, which is knowing the previous also. So what is that? That you are. यद्येवं भगवन् कूटस्थ नित्योपलब्धि स्वरूपे मयि शब्दाद्या कार बौद्ध प्रत्ययेषु च मत्स्वरूपोपलब्ध्या भासफलावसान वत्सु उत्पद्यमानेषु कस्त्वपराधो मम. If this is so, the disciple is saying, if this is so, sir, what is my fault when the mental changes resembling sound, etc., resulting in the reflection of knowledge, my own nature are produced in me, in me, who am of the nature of changeless and eternal consciousness? He's gone back to his original doubt. Then, if this is so, sir, what is my fault when I say that the mental modifications, what were the mental modifications? That the sound consciousness, touch consciousness, this consciousness, becoming aware of this, that, every different objects of the world, if they are resulting in a knowledge, and that knowledge is a reflection of the original knowledge, which is the self, it is a reflection of the knowledge which is the self, my own nature are produced in me, who am of the nature of changeless and eternal pure consciousness. So, did I say something wrong? Now suddenly the student has understood something different now. He is not in the same doubtful disposition. So the teacher says, Satyam, what you have said is absolutely correct. The conclusion that you have come to is absolutely correct. Naste paradaha, kintu avidya matrastu aparadha iti prage vavocham. It is true that you are not to be blamed. Ignorance, as I told you before, is the only fault. So what is the reason that the water expresses as ocean and wave, and then has a thought about ocean and wave, and has the knowledge which is a reflection of the knowledge which is already available and in its entirety within the ocean, waters? Ignorance. See how the conclusion they have come to that conclusion. Ignorance. And what is ignorance?
Not abiding in the self. Not abiding in the self.
Not abiding in the self, yes. But that is an incomplete definition. And we must go by the definition which are complete. And the definition of ignorance is that which appears and yet appears not. So, water is complete, but on it we see the wave. So, due to ignorance, eyes are seeing the waves. So, it appears. Why? Because of ignorance. But is there a wave? There is no wave. There is only water. So, there is no ignorance. So, that ignorance is that which appears and yet it is not. And therefore, so is the whole creation. Reality is, self alone is. यदि भगवान सुषुप्त इव मम विक्रिया नास्ति कथम स्वप्न जागरिते. The disciple said, Sir, why are there the states of dream and waking in me if I am absolutely changeless like one in deep sleep? Now the student is going to a different, he's gone away from the thoughts. Now he's coming to a nothingness experience. So he says, I am changeless because I don't see any modifications in the mind when I'm in the deep sleep. Excuse me. So why do waking and dream come to happen? Tam Guru Ruvacha. Kim tu anubhuyete tvaya satatam. The teacher said to him, but you always experience them whenever they arise. Every day they arise, every day they go away. You are aware that now I am awake. Someone is saying I am awake. Someone is saying that I had a dream. Someone is saying I had a deep sleep. So, in spite of having all the thoughts in the waking plane or in the dream plane or no thoughts in the deep sleep plane, there was someone knowing, which is an independent principle from all the changes that are happening at the thought level or in the mind at waking, dream and deep sleep level. So whether mind was manifest or unmanifest, waking and dream is manifest and unmanifest is deep sleep. There is some other principle which is knowing the manifestation of the mind or unmanifestation of the mind. So you cannot say that I don't know. You know you are awake right now, every one of you. And if you were not awake and if you are not knowing in dream and deep sleep, how would you come to the conclusion that I had a dream? Or how will you come to this conclusion and make a statement next morning, I had a very blissful sleep? There was someone available there. Badham anubhavami kim tu vichidya natu santatam. Disciple says, yes, I experience them at intervals but not continuously. I experience that now I'm awake, then I'll experience the dream, then I'll experience the sleep, then tomorrow again I'll go through the whole process. But I don't experience waking, dream and deep sleep in one go. Tam Guru Vacha Tarhi Agantuke Tvete Na Navatma Bhute Yadi Tavatma Bhute Chaitanya Swarupavat Swatah Siddhe Santata Eva Syatam Kim Cha Swapna Jagarite Na Tava Atma Bhute Vyabhicharitvat Vastradivata. The teacher said, then they are then adventitious. You know what is the word adventitious mean? Maybe advantageous. Maybe, I don't know. Then they are then adventitious only and are not your own nature. They will surely be continuous if they were self-existent like pure consciousness which is your own nature. Oh, you are not experiencing them continuously, which means they are only to be utilized. They are only an expression. They are only a reflection. They are only a conditioned expression or limited expression. Because if they were continuous, then they should be like the self. Self is continuous. And because they are not, you are not able to see them. You are seeing it in a linear way. Moreover, they are not your own nature inasmuch as they are non-persistent like clothes and other things. For what is one's own nature is never seen to cease to persist while one is persisting. Meaning, I'll just tell the whole thing. But waking and dream cease to persist while pure consciousness continues to do so. So what he's saying is, pure conscious, there is never a moment when the self is not expressing itself. There is never a moment. Whether the mind is there or whether the mind is not there, meaning manifest or unmanifest. But the self doesn't cease to persist, meaning cease to express. Whether a wave is there or not there, whether an ocean is there or not there, water doesn't cease to, using their words, persist. It's continuously there. You never have, see the statement is, we can never have the experience of our own absence. Isn't it? Nobody has experienced their own absence. But we have experienced that now I am not dreaming, I am not in deep sleep, and vice versa. Isn't it? The knowledge is there that when I was in deep sleep, I think there were no thoughts, or dream and waking were unavailable there. But I never have the experience of my own absence. Pure consciousness, the self, persisting in deep sleep, whatever is non-persistent at that time is either destroyed or negated, inasmuch as adventitious things, never the properties of one's own nature, are found to possess these characteristics. For example, the destruction of money, clothes, etc., and the negation of things acquired in dream or delusion are seen. Meaning, only that can persist, that can continue to be that which is always. Now you see what is not all, when they are giving the example of money, clothes, etc., they have a temporary life, so they go away, so they cannot persist continuously. Same way, the waking, dream and deep sleep, they also cannot persist continuously, because waking gives way to dream, gives way to deep sleep, gives way to waking again. But there is one principle which is persisting continuously. That is where the knowledge, the one who knows. So anything that can be negated cannot persist. Anything that can be negated. But can you, so last point is, can you negate yourself? You can say, I am not the world, I am not the body, I am not the breath, I am not the emotions, I am not the thoughts, ideas, concepts. Can you come to the witness, you come to the I, can you negate the I? You can't. That unnegatable principle is the self. Therefore you are all knowing. Nanvevam Bhagavan Chaitanya Surupam api agantukam praptam swapna jagaritayoreva sushupte anupalabdhehe achaitanya swarupo va syamaham. Disciple: but sir, when this is so, pure consciousness itself has to be admitted to be adventitious like waking and dream, for it is not known in deep sleep. Or it may be that I have adventitious consciousness, or I am non-conscious by nature. So he says, if waking is advantageous for us to function in a particular way, and dream is advantageous, meaning I have the various experiences and enjoy those experiences, it has some purpose, then the self also has to be adventitious. Why? Because for it is not known. So you cannot say that the self is continuous. Anything that is not continuous is advantageous or adventitious. So he says, in the deep sleep the self is not there. So maybe we have jumped the queue in explaining, but this is where slowly the mind of the disciple is coming to. He says, in the deep sleep there is no consciousness. The teacher says, no, look, what you say is not right. Think over it. It is not reasonable to say, come to this conclusion what you are saying. You may look upon pure consciousness as adventitious if you are wise enough, but we cannot prove it to be so by reasoning even in 100 years. nor can it be proved to be so even by a dull man. As the consciousness that has for its adjuncts mental modifications is a combination, no one can prevent its existence for the sake of another, its manyness and destructibility by any reasoning whatever. For we have already said that whatsoever does not exist for itself is not self-existent. As pure consciousness, the self is existent. No one can prevent its independence of other things inasmuch as it never ceases to exist. So the idea is that I am a seer, I am a hearer, etc., showing consciousness is in one in dream and waking, are absent in deep sleep, together with the two states. The disciple's idea is, when the two states are not there in deep sleep, my consciousness is also not there. That is, no one can be so dull to prove it to be so. And this was the whole topic, that the consciousness is self-existent. It does not require a knowledge to take place whether the self is there or not there. And how would you know anyway? In deep sleep there are no thoughts, so how would the knowledge take place? Relative knowledge, because he is thinking objectively right now. How will objective knowledge take place? It's not possible. But when you wake up from the dream, deep sleep, you have the knowledge. So you did not think, and yet you had the knowledge. That means that knowledge and the self are synonymous. They are the same. They are not separate. Disciple, but I have shown an exception, namely, I have no consciousness in deep sleep. The teacher says, now, no, you contradict yourself. How is that contradiction? You contradict yourself by saying that you are not conscious when, as a matter of fact, you are so conscious. And I have given you how we are conscious in the deep sleep already. So, going a bit more into it, how you become conscious, so the student will read it, and then if you don't understand, or I have already explained to you, you are then conscious in deep sleep, for you deny the existence of the objects of knowledge in that state, but not that of knowledge. So you deny the objects of knowledge. What are the objects of knowledge? Thought. But the knowledge itself is there. I have told you that what is your consciousness is nothing but absolute knowledge. So which consciousness? This I that we are talking about, this consciousness that we are talking about, is itself the pure consciousness, is the absolute knowledge. The consciousness owing to whose presence you deny the existence of things in deep sleep by saying, I was conscious of nothing, is the knowledge. In the deep sleep, you are aware of nothing.
But the knowledge of existence is there when we wake up.
The knowledge of existence is there even when you are sleeping.
Yes.
But it's without a thought.
Yes, they are unmanifest.
See, just ask yourself, you went to deep sleep last night, you must have slept, and you must have had some period where you went into deep sleep. Deep sleep means zero thought, emptiness, nothing. Correct? And you did not think also. There were no thoughts there.
No thoughts.
Then how did you come to know that there were no thoughts? How did you come to this conclusion when you woke up? Because it's a memory. Now you are in a waking state. So when you are talking about in the waking state, you are only out of memory you are saying that I had no thoughts, isn't it?
Yes, that happens because of there is no objective thoughts.
No. There is no thought only
Yes.
in deep sleep. Where is the question of objective or subjective there? There is no thought. Yet the knowledge that there is nothing was there, wasn't it? Someone was there recording that message. And when you woke up, you were able to repeat that, or you were able to bring that out of yourself. So he's saying, I was conscious of nothing is the knowledge, the consciousness which is your self. As it never ceases to exist. What doesn't cease to exist? The knowledge or the self doesn't cease to exist. It doesn't cease to exist. Its eternal immutability is self-evident and does not depend on any evidence. It does not need an objective knowledge to take place in order to know. It's all-knowing. Not only your deep sleep it can know the entire, everyone's deep sleep. Knower depends on an evidence in order to be known. This is a empirical understanding, that there has to be a knower and they're known, and then the knowledge takes place. Other than the object, the eternal knowledge that is indispensable in proving non-conscious things other than itself is immutable, for it is always of a self-evident nature, just as iron, water, etc., which are not of the nature of light and heat, depend for them on the sun, fire, etc., and other things other than themselves, but the sun and fire themselves, always of the nature of heat and light, do not depend for them on anything else. So, being the nature of pure knowledge, it does not depend on an evidence to prove that it exists or that it is the knower. No words can ever prove the self. No words. And therefore, in Bhagavad Gita it came, even the scriptures have to be dropped. Even the scriptures have to be dropped. But the process that is told is, from tamasic you come to the rajasic thoughts, the rajasic you come to the sattvic thoughts, sattvic you come to the absolutely sattvic thoughts, and then you drop that sattvic thought also. Then comes this, I am aware of nothing. Then you drop that also. As long as you are looking outside, this is the stage. Tamasic, inert thoughts, dynamic thoughts, pure thoughts, no thoughts. But you are looking outwards. Who is looking outwards? Consciousness is aware, being aware. You are aware. Who is aware? You. Who is you? I. What is this I? The consciousness itself. Because it's expressing through a imaginary medium. In its light, you are able to gain the relative knowledge. But you don't need the relative objects to know the self. You need the self to know the relative objects, the objects of the world. But it's not, the vice versa is not true, is not possible. Through the objects, you can never come to know the self. It is an impossible. It does not depend on an evidence to prove that it exists or that it is the knower, disciple. But it is transitory knowledge, only that is the result of a proof and not eternal knowledge. What is transitory knowledge? That the waking, dream, deep sleep are coming and going. This is just transitory knowledge. The teacher says, no, There cannot reasonably be a distinction of perpetuity or otherwise in knowledge, for it is not known that transitory knowledge is the result of a proof and not eternal knowledge, as knowledge itself is such a result. Meaning that transitory knowledge will always require a proof. Nobody needs a proof that they are alive. For everything else you will need a proof, but you don't need a proof if you are alive or I can't say dead. Even death can have a proof. If will need a proof. But self does not need a proof. It is self-existing, it's self-evident, it's self-illuminating, it's self-effulgent. Disciple. But eternal knowledge does not depend on a knower, while transitory knowledge does so, as it is produced by an intervening effort. This is the difference. Now his attention has gone, okay, I understand what you're saying. The eternal knowledge, the Sat Chit Anand, Chit Swarup, you are the Chinmaya Swarup, you are all knowing, that is one, but there is another knower, what we are talking about, the transitory knower, so called. Well, you can't say transitory knower, but limited knower. There is a difference between the two. Siddha tari atmana pramatu swata siddhihi pramana nirapeksha tayayveti. The teacher says the knower, which is the self, is then self-evident, as it does not depend on any evidence in order to be proved. Any knowledge gained through senses, sense perceptions, through the mind or the intellect is transitory knowledge. Or the knower there is is the transitory knowledge. But in the self there is no change. Self is all knowing. That knowledge which can change, which is subject to change, is transitory knowledge. What is subject to change? That waking will change to dream, will change to deep sleep, will change to waking. The knowledge that you are here now, after some time you will go away, then the knowledge will be you are not here now. So this is transitory knowledge. But we never have the experience that I am not there. Again we come back to the same thing. We never have this experience that I am not there. So therefore the self is self-evident. It does not require a proof because it does not go through change. Therefore it is not transitory knowledge. It is eternal knowledge. Disciple. If the knowledge of the self be independent of an evidence on the ground that it is eternal, why should the absence of the result of an evidence with regards to the self be not so on the same ground? The teacher says no. It has been refuted on the ground that it is pure knowledge that is in the self. He is just holding on to his point. The disciple thinks that the self does not exist as it is not known by an evidence. This is those who are intellectual, which is slowly changing in this creation. Everything is who are scientists, they only want to know everything objectively. They will not accept that there is a higher power and that they are the higher power. This higher power is hidden within them. So now the student asks, to whom will the desire to know a thing belong to if the knower depends on an evidence in order to be known? It is admitted that one who is desirous of knowing a thing is the knower. His desire of knowing a thing has for its object the thing to be known and not the knower. For in the latter case there arises a regression ad infinitum with regard to the knower and also with regard to the desire to know the knower, inasmuch as the knower of the knower and so on are to be known. Meaning there is an object and every object has a knower. Now, who is the knower of this knower?
As the self.
Can we go further back? Can't. So the teacher is telling, don't ask this type of question. That knower itself is essentially the self. Recognize this. How? By the contemplation that we are doing and because you are that. But where are we seeking the self right now? In the mind. Mind is outside. Mind is an aberration. Mind is a wave on the self. A wave cannot know the water. Wave has to go in order for water to... Well, I shouldn't say wave has to go. Whether wave is there or not there, self is always. But that water which has identified with a beginning and an end, with a form, has now started calling itself a wave. Exactly the same way we have started calling ourselves an individual because we have a beginning and an end. And essentially, let's go a bit deeper. That consciousness gets identified with the breath or with a thought. A thought has a beginning and end. Therefore, a relationship is created. And it starts thinking, I am only that. But that has to change. And for that, we cannot just take the waking experience only as our field of inquiry. Cannot. We have to take the waking dream, which is together called waking experience, and the manifested experience and the unmanifested experience, which is deep sleep. All the three states have to be looked at entirely in order to shoot out of them. You cannot look at only the deep sleep, you cannot look at only the waking, or you cannot look at only the dream. You have to inquire into the three and see what is that because of which all these three, the triads, are coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. And I know them. That yesterday also I had waking dream and deep sleep, today also I have waking dream and deep sleep, tomorrow also I will have. So the teacher so you don't keep asking who is the knower of this knower now. Otherwise there will be no end. We have to stop. Disciple. But the knower remains unknown if there is no knowledge which has for its object the knower. But the knower remains unknown if there is no knowledge which has for its object the knower. So the teacher says, no, the knowledge of the knower has for its object the thing to be known. If it has for its object the knower, there arises again regression. It has already been shown that like the heat and light of the sun, the fire and other things, the knowledge which is changeless, eternal and self-effulgent has an existence in the self entirely independent of everything else. So basically the teacher is again telling him that don't find cause and effect. Get out of this cause and effect. As long as you keep harping on what is the cause that this knower is there, what is the cause that knower is there, you will never come to the conclusion. We'll stop here because still quite a few verses are there. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.